Perfect. So, this is the second interview with Amanda. Thank you for welcoming us with your magnetic energy. Last time we talked about the Mutual UFO Network. And so this is the second edition, different podcast, different style. But today is special. We talked about how billionaires study astrology, millionaires do not, right? JP Morgan what famously said that. And today is the 7th, so we specifically chose this day. It's the 777 portal, the trifecta. So July the 7th, Uranus moved into Taurus, from Taurus to Gemini, starting a new 7-year cycle that includes shakeups and revolutionary changes, initiating global change and initiating leadership, creating innovation relating to journalism, media, and publishing. And just like that is so perfect. So I'm just like I had to message you, and I swear, billionaires have to have top-notch astrologers on standby. They would have to because energy is very important. It's what determines whether you make or break a meeting. You know what I mean? If the energy is
Yeah.
chaotic, if it's overstimulating, if it's very relaxed and liberal, that kind of energy, right? So I would imagine that they would have to, right? And pay
Yeah, I think
top dollar for it too.
yeah, exactly. And I think too a lot of people they don't realize like when you're trying to work on something, you're trying to build something, that manifestation and your own energy and being in tune with how you're feeling and what's going on around you for, just life in general around you. It's important because if you're not really generally aware, self-aware about your own emotions and how, you connect to the world around you, then it can be kind of frustrating because you might feel something, you're like, I don't even know why I feel this, right? But then you're not aware, hey, we're getting hit with like a million solar storms this week or like something like that, right? So you're just not aware of
Yeah,
that. So, and
yeah.
some people who are like empathic, they're very in tune with like the earth's vibrational, like natural vibrational balance. So I'm like that. I don't know if you are, but I am definitely.
I've noticed it's been quite hot the past couple days, and today it's just very cloudy. I live in the Royal City in Guelph here, so it's bit of a it's you got to have that balance, that equilibrium, because there's really hot days, and then you got to have that nice balance to create the neutral polarity in there. So it's a great day to be inside to do an interview. And so on an individual level, the energy ramps up how we express ourselves within regards to radical revolutionary ideas. Also, Venus moved into Gemini on the 4th until about the 30th, and it's the perfect time now to explore new relationships, intellectual stimulation, time to align our prosperity with the new Earth timeline. It's the age of the people's uprising. So the moon just moved into Sagittarius as well today, which is about vibrancy, optimism, and adventurous nature. So it's time to have an honest conversation and a creative collaboration. I was decoding the numerology of today as well. It's a perfect 5, which ties into phi being the golden ratio. So gold is the most electric, silver is the most magnetic. Your company that you launched, and that's why I'm so thankful that we reconnected recently, because there was a publisher in Hawaii that I've been looking for a publisher because I've been writing my book and just didn't mesh with the energy. And then I found another one here, and it just wasn't, the energy wasn't aligning. And then I go to your profile and I'm just like, Magnetic Publishing, a publishing company specifically geared for entrepreneurs. And I gotta know more about that. So, you also were recently listed in the Los Angeles Tribune
Mhm.
for your publishing continuing to expand awareness with the global impact and your award-winning books and empowering leadership. I'm just going to read off a quote here from your new book, not yet released, but this is a bit of a snippet. Sometimes you're left with two choices, neither one without consequences, but still you're left to make a move. That is just, it just leaves people on the edge of their seat. And with the 777 portal, it's pushing people to make that next move. It's creating like a bifurcation process where people are splitting, just
Hmm.
like the timeline split, because I knew this, but I didn't know how deep it went. The Dogon tribe, they actually talk about the time before the moon. There was an imprinting in the timelines, and you can see an energetic split because the moon has a lot of power over our unconscious, the subconscious mind, the part that governs our reality and
Hmm.
really guides us, because that is what the ancients referred to as God. Because God is the omniscient, omnipotent, omniscient,
And
omnibenevolent.
it's interesting because this came up for me right before we connected. I came across this one creator who was talking about the dark side of the moon and how exists on the moon this intelligence, this awareness that scientists have acknowledged. In fact, China even sent, people to this dark side of the moon. And what it is it's like a program that manipulates. It's not the same AI as we're using today, but it is what they refer to as a program that manipulates our emotional state, our well-being, our dreams, are all of these things. So we're very like what it is, nobody really knows, but we know that we are very affected by the sun, the moon, and the stars, planetary alignment. We're, especially people who are very spiritual aware, they have that awareness that they are connected to something greater than that, meets the eye. A lot of people they dismiss that, but they don't even recognize that even now science, even metaphysics, is starting to say, hey, no, there's something more than just what you visually see in front of you. You're connected to a greater collective that's out there and exists, right? So a lot of people, they dismiss that in life. And I think that it's important to kind of recognize it because if you're trying to build a business, you're trying to raise a family, you're trying to do all of these things, you have to have a sense of spirituality. You have to have all of those things because it enforces, faith and trust and belief that you're meant to do things, you're meant to connect to certain things. So I'm a big spiritual person. I don't know if everybody is, but I notice that a lot of successful people, they do have that about them and they are really, really, it's like they dial into like almost all of this stuff, right? Like they're just
People are coming into our lives. There's a separation from old timelines as well, relationships, breaking of soul contracts that just no longer work out. And it's interesting, we had the conversation right before we jumped on here about uh, when we're in conflict mode with people, it's the wrestling spirit and the nature. And this is something that leadership is so important, because sometimes it's about loaning strength instead of reminding of weakness, and inspiration is one of the most difficult things, is taking a step back in the moment.
Mhm.
Uh, I overcame homelessness, and it's amazing how things can change when the mindset changes. Because one of the things that I learned when I was homeless is that it takes an incredible amount of strength to remain calm when feeling disrespected, and it's channeling energy into something that we're passionate about, especially writing. Because for a while, people told me, that I got to write a book with all the life experiences. So then I started and been looking for a publisher. It's perfect. Thank you for agreeing to come on
Yeah.
and doing what you're doing. So I wanted to hear your story, specifically because the alignment is so on point. And we talked before on the last talk, before we had some technical difficulties, about the power of the subconscious mind. And the Doggone tribe talked about a time before the moon. Our subconscious mind governs everything that we do, right? So there's a timeline split happening right now. People being forced to make uncomfortable choices, forced to make new decisions, and just the energy of we're in the final year.
Mhm.
9 is the numerical value of this year. It's the closing off of old things, and the energy is just it's so powerful and magnetic right now. So I wanted to
Mhm.
dive deeper into your story about why you chose it, how you came up with the idea and the whole vision and how big this can really get. Because as we talked about on the previous call,
Mhm.
billionaires, energy is super important. Billionaires have to have an astrologer on standby. Like we specifically chose this date because it was prime. It was prime. And the energy created from now, like what people do on the 777 portal, it ripples throughout the entire timeline throughout the entire year. So thank you once again, Amanda, and let's kick this off with a bang. Floor is yours.
Yes. So, one of the things that a lot of people know when I first started my writing, a lot of it was because I was in an accident. I had to deal with a life challenges. There was a lot of struggles and there was a lot of issues that I had to deal with, a lot of loss, a lot of grief. There was just a lot of everything happening for me very quickly. And so I had to learn how to, even if my decisions or what I was going through, I had to pick, even if it wasn't a good solution, right? Sometimes you're just left with a few solutions and neither of them are kind of good or whatever. You still have to make decisions regardless of what's in front of you. And so one of those decisions I think a lot of people make is if they're going to let those circumstances kind of destroy them and hold them back and dictate a future, or they're going to take the terrible things that we go through in life, and they're going to use those experiences to build their character and be strong for people around them and become an advocate against things that are happening that maybe didn't go so well for them. Right? You learn to turn that into leadership skills rather than being stuck in a state of crisis or panic, right? And some people they have a really hard time making decisions and learning from circumstances, and they kind of get stuck in patterns of victimization and all these negative things, right? So it's about learning to take all of the negative stuff that happens and transform it into more positive experiences in order to lead.
Bingo, yes, because the ones that will lead the great change, the ones that will be at the forefront in this pivotal moment of time, will be the ones that are most adaptable and resilient to change. It's not the ones that have the best IQ, smartest, raised with their exceptional genetics or wealthy families. It is the ones that can adapt based on dedication, consistency, and the willingness to be disciplined in their nature to develop that skill set and fortify and master their mind. Those are the leaders. Those are the authors,
Right.
the way showers, right?
And it's an acknowledgement of understanding that what you're not changing, like you're choosing, right? It's acknowledgement of recognizing that you're the only person in your story that has the ability to kind of change things for yourself, right? there are elemental factors that take place around us that we can't control the weather. We can't control the way the sun rises or sets, but we can control our response and how we handle things around us. And so we can choose either to be magnetic and choose to take terrible things and make them into good things, or we can get stuck in cycles and toxic patterns, and that's kind of a punishment, right, to ourselves, right? So eventually, a lot of people, when they're dealing with huge life-changing circumstances, they're gonna react some kind of way because we're emotional. We are very emotional beings, and we're very receptive and reactive to our environments, to the things that are going on around us. But it's about having, like you said earlier, having a level of discipline and a level of acknowledgement that, we are in control of us. And that's all we need to be in control of, because it doesn't matter if it rains or if it's snowing or whatever. You can still find a way to make whatever you want happen for yourself.
Yeah, it can lead to a dangerous path when people are solely governed by their emotions. Emotions are more of a guide, and being knowing how to adjust to that. Some people love the cold weather, some people love the hot weather, but that shouldn't determine someone's mood. Like, I noticed my
Yeah.
life starting to change when I started waking up every morning, and the first thing that comes out of my mouth is thank you. Instead of rushing to turn off the alarm or just leaving or not even setting the alarm, right?
Yeah.
Attitude matters so much because it's epigenetics. Our body is listening to every thought, every emotion, whether it's a toxic or whether it's a tonic thought, how we speak about others. And this is something that's can be tough too, is as you alluded to it earlier. We're only in control of ourselves, right? People will change and start asking questions once they see the change in other people. It's one thing to know the knowledge, it's a totally different thing to actually embody it. And that is
Well,
what
yeah,
makes someone magnetic.
you can know it, but it's about how you're going to apply it, right? You have to have application. It's not enough just to have knowledge. You have to turn it into application, and that's either by changing and controlling your thoughts, controlling your routines, your patterns, what you're consuming, the people that you're around, the things that you're doing. If you want to be like the top 3%, you can't do what everybody else is doing. You don't go where they go. You can't do and pick up the patterns that everybody else is picking up. You have to be merely focused on your goals and manifesting what is important to you, because what you're putting your energy and focusing on, that's what's going to be your reality,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like if I say to you, oh my God, there's so many red cars. All of a sudden, you're going to notice while we're out, there's so many red cars. And then you're
Yeah.
going to mention it. And then everyone's going to, yeah, you're right. There is a lot of red cars,
Because
because it's influence, it's power.
it's influence. You injected that seed. The mind notices things that are of novelty, right? So it's just like it's
Right.
now it's imprinted there, and that's everything. There's an ex-Navy SEAL who now a best-selling author. He didn't care if it just sold one copy, as long as it changed someone's life. That's the impact that a detachment has. And it's so important because he's out there running, he's out there exercising, he's so disciplined, out there sweating, shirtless on the side of the highway. And someone stops in the car and asks him, "Why are you out here running?" He says, "Because you're not." David Goggins, his
Yeah.
motto is stay hard. He's so disciplined, and that is what he teaches people is to just get up, go out there and do it. And a lot of things that hold people back is the power of their own mind. They don't realize the power of their own thoughts because it's doubt. When doubt creeps in and hinders their actions, then they can get stuck in their mind. And success first starts in the mind. Yeah, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. David Bob Proctor that was attributed to. But it's not enough. The action creates the momentum, right? So
Right.
you saw you not only like when did you become a best-selling author? What led you to that journey? And then the second follow-up to that is what was the inspiration that led you to create the publishing company? Because you felt like a niche that didn't exist and you cover bases that most you're different than most publishing
Mhm.
companies.
Yeah. So actually, I've always been into books. I've always been into writing my whole life, always been into kind of manifestation, very drawn towards energetic things and entrepreneurship. I have over 20 years of leadership. And in 2018, I did a book, my very first book with Les Brown's daughter, Serena Brown Travis. And I was able to start my writing journey with Robert J. Moore, who's a New York Times bestselling author. So I kept writing and I just kept playing around with it. I did my first book, my co-authorship, and I really, really liked publishing. I really liked the people, the networking, the entrepreneurs, the unique mindsets and value and skills that everybody kind of brought in towards collaborations and just book writing in general. So then it was about 2022. I had been at another job for a couple years, doing a leadership position there, managerial position, going through like major life changes. I more kids, relationship stuff, house stuff, legal stuff, you name it. I was going through it. And I got really burnt out. And then, but the whole time I was working there, I was still writing. I was still writing my book, Exceptional Mind. So I was getting up at 3 a.m. every single day. I said to myself, it's not enough for me to just work a 9 to 5 job. This is not going to be enough because it's not fulfilling my needs and my passion for writing and reading. It's not, I didn't want to give up that part of myself because in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm going to be a writer. I want to be somebody, like this is what I want to do. This is my passion. And most people, they'll sell their dreams for a $30,000 salary a year.
Yeah, it's
I
not
didn't want that.
fulfilling. Like a friend of mine, she said to me, life is empty without service to others. I I'm a lot like you. I can't work a traditional job, and there's been blockages on my path to show me that I need to put everything, every ounce of my being into this project that I'm working on called Solution Central. Because I've
Yeah.
even tried to apply for jobs. I've even been to the point where I will humble myself enough to wash dishes and be a busboy at a bar. People just weren't getting back to me, and I'm just like, okay, there's a sign. I said straight to my dad, I won't give up on my dream. Like I had this vision that stirred a fire in my spirit. And this is why they took the ether out of science books, because God is the breath of life. It's the spirit at the very center of our being. Eth, air. We need air, and earth is our heart, right?
Mhm.
What's the most magnetic part of our body? The heart. Yeah. So
It's,
passion.
I think too, what it is most people, you know, there's people who are very intuitive, they're very drawn to certain things like music, writing, maybe they want to be a painter. If that's inside of you and you have a dream and it's inside of you and you really, really want that, and people are going to look at you and they're like, you're never going to be an author. You're never going to be a writer. You're not going to be a singer or a famous painter or a musician or whatever. You're going to get that from all kinds of people because they sold their dreams and they gave up on them long ago. And they decided that a $40,000 salary a year working 9 to 5 was good enough for them. And maybe that is good enough for them. But for people who are really aligned with their purpose, their value, who they are, they know what they want, they're going to be drawn to certain things. And it's not going to matter what anybody says because maybe everybody else can't see what they're building, what they're doing. And that's the type of passion and determination that you have to have when you're doing things. People are going to think you're nuts. They're going to be like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, there's just no way you're going to make $5 million in 3 years. And you're like, but yes, yeah, I am going to do that. I don't care what you say.
Are
And
you
you
from
have to run with that. You have to.
you got to run with it. Are you familiar with the quote, when you work in silence, people don't know what to attack, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you can be anywhere you want in life, but for me, I knew what I wanted. I knew that eventually I wanted my own business. I wanted to be able to create something that had value, gave people purpose, gave people a voice. I loved my writing. And then Robert offered to sell me the business, which was under Magnetic Entrepreneur. And so I did that. And then I ended up rebranding, creating my own brand I kept the Magnetic because I did a lot of work in coaching with Robert on publishing and writing to learn how to do this because there's a lot to know in publishing. There's a lot of standards. It's a big process, and this is people's stories. You have to do this with care and an attitude of servitude because it's a very competitive industry, and it's a very important industry because you getting your story out there, getting your story seen, and being able to write an entire book, it's a pretty big accomplishment. So it's very important to people, and it's very important to me. So that's one of the things what fueled me. I knew that I wanted to serve people and help people, help them get their stories out, help them learn the industry, learn how to create award-winning books. So a lot of that determination and passion for me came from the fact that I really wanted it. So I worked really hard, 12-hour days or more. I got up at 3 a.m. every single day, and I did this for years. And that's how I first started publishing books. And then I bought the company, I rebranded, and now I've learned how to do all of this on my own. And I work with like many, many authors, whether it's collaborations, whether it's speaking, whether it's summits, whether like I'm working even with other publishers now. I've learned the power of teamwork, collaboration. And I've been really lucky. I've had a lot of really wonderful mentors and a lot of really awesome people. But yes, leadership is a shared experience, and you cannot have a business and you cannot be a leader and you can't do it all on your own. So that was one of my
Bingo.
big lessons I had to learn.
And it reminds me of a memory. I had a conversation with a friend of mine in the States. I'll just pull this up right here. I was just scrolling last night. A lot of inspiration. I was just sitting in the moonlight and went for a walk. But what she said, it spoke volumes to me because I took on a huge project when I woke it, right? And because I'm just like, because Virgos are very analytical, precise, and they're perfectionists, even though there's no such thing as perfect. We want to
Yes.
get as close to perfect and organized as possible, right? So she said to me that, see if I can pull this up, but along the lines, while I'm looking for this, what you said about like people love to attack things that they don't understand. There's a series called The Magicians, and quote from there is, "It's the mark of the foolish and ignorant to attack something that you don't understand." When people can't reach their dreams, it makes them feel better when they can go after someone who is on their way to achieving their dreams, right?
It's a lot of people, they often are envious and jealous of other people's success and the things that they have, but they don't understand the price that's paid to get where somebody stands. They don't understand that it was, maybe they spent months and months and they didn't leave the house and they sat at a computer for 18 hours a day building that. They don't understand that that person, worked 2 jobs to be able to pay. Like for me, I was working 2 jobs to pay for my publishing, because my publishing and book writing was a side thing in the beginning, right? So I was working a lot to be able to do that and start building a writer's portfolio. So I took a risk and I decided that I was going to invest on myself. So when people are typically jealous and envious of things, I think it comes from a place where they don't typically understand what was involved in the process. And they don't, instead of asking a question like, how did you do it? Instead they want to make it personal because they can't figure it out on their own. So
Yes.
that's typically what you will see a lot in life. In my personal opinion, that's typically what I've noticed a lot of
Yeah.
people tend to do when they don't understand everything involved.
Emotional attachment. In the book, The Four Agreements, one of the four agreements is never take anything personally. I can't find it, so I've learned to be just living in the present moment. It just makes things so much easier, and
Mhm.
it relinquishes resistance too. So I'll just paraphrase, because I was talking about how stressed I was, and people have asked me, is that like a lot of weight on your shoulders? And I said to her, you know, she said it's only going to be difficult if you try to do it all on your own. And for so long, I thought I had to do it all on my own, right? Because
Mhm.
some people, it's easier to put on a face, and not everyone always sees the side of you. Like talking about astrology,
Yeah.
most important sign that you see when you first meet someone in business or in life is their rising sign, right? So she said, it's only going to be difficult if you try to do it all on your own. And what you're doing for humanity is incredible because I saw things. I like to be innovative. I'm inquisitive. If I see something, a system that's not working properly, like I just can't do it. I was involved in different network marketing companies, and then I saw things where it could be better
Mhm.
or different or more improved. So I took a step back, and if there's too many rules, if there's too much structure or do's and don'ts, it's just like it's not relaxed enough. So I just thought in my head, why can't I do my own company? Why can't I have my own live events? And I even this is the thing too, right? It's so easy to see so far off in the future and then be hard on ourselves too. It's just like, why aren't we further
Right.
enough along? But then we look at the growth and it was just like, we've overcome so much already. Just keep
Mhm.
going, and then it'll one day
Exactly.
you'll wake up, and then there's another
It
saying
clicked.
where you're one move away from everyone acting like they saw the vision from all along. But if
Right.
the confidence though, they have to be confident that it's gonna work out, and then like you said earlier, action steps to making it a reality and a dream come true.
That's correct. And the chances are, if you felt some way about an experience, or like let's say, you felt like, okay, I've done this in my life, I've attended these types of marketing, whatever, and you notice, okay, there's a need. If you felt that way, somebody else probably felt that way too. And it's about aligning, right? Aligning with the right people who are having the same kind of experience as you and being able to solve a problem, right?
Bingo.
And that's the big thing in business. And that's when it comes down to alignment. If you can focus on the issues and the problems that need solving and you've got a solution, you've got a business model, right? And that's where it comes because people hear about problems every single day. That's all they hear about is problems. The world's full of them. They
It's
want
easy.
solutions.
It's easy to complain, but it takes
Right,
a special type of individual, and that's why business owners make the most because they're not afraid to take the risks, solve the problem,
right,
and think outside the box.
right. And that's it. And that's what it is. You have to be willing to take those risks, solve the problems, have the hard conversation, and do it with integrity. If you're being sensationalized, we all know we have tons of problems on a global level. We are in some crazy times, and we know that these problems exist. When it's sensationalized and everybody's like, oh, this and that, and they're like so negative, right? Everybody's focused on dialing in on that negative lack and that negative issue with the problem. It takes a really courageous and brave person to say, okay, we know that there's a problem, but what are we going to do about it,
The
right?
calm and the
What are the
chaos.
steps that we're going to take to get it done? And most people can't get their mind there because they're like, but this problem has caused this, this, and this, and this for me, and that and for my neighbor, and this for, you know what I mean? So it's easy to get stuck on certain mindsets, right? So that's why if you meet people who are like, okay, yeah, but this is the reality we're in, but complaining's not going to help. We actually have to take action. Those are the type of people you want to surround yourself with because they're the ones that are in an innovative mindset that's more solution focused. They're going to help you align and manifest positive things, positive results. You can't get positive results from negative people. You just can't.
And you can't outgrow your environment either. I feel at my best when I'm surrounded by like-minded people that I can see have drive and vigor, like yourself, that I know we're going places. That's when I feel at my best, when I'm serving,
Right.
providing,
Right.
creating, innovating, surrounded by people that have not just an idea, but they have vision and they have the means and desire and work ethic to accomplish that. Because living a mediocre life, it just feels unfulfilling to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's great for some people, right? Some people could be the happiest they're ever going to be as a bank teller.
Right.
I look at ideas and I see the company, I'm just like,
Well,
okay,
what's
how
good
can
for
we
one
make
is not good for all, you know?
exactly. And then it's wild on the journey to start doing the little things, the necessary,
Mm-hmm.
consistent things, and then people's to start coming into your life. It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
whoa. It like that's the thing about just having that little bit of blind faith and the law of assumption working in our favor, that ignorance actually helps us to maintain that free will pattern and predictability, and then it just all unfolds. Like, do you ever look at your life and think, whoa, it like it's happening?
Yeah, yeah. But that's it. But most people, they don't understand that there's universal law. If you don't believe in something, how can it possibly guide and help you? If you don't have any trust in the universe, that the universe knows exactly what it's doing, it's bringing you the tools, it's bringing you the resources and the people that you need. If your mind doesn't under your mind's a conductor. So if all you're conducting is negativity and I don't have, then that's what you're attracting. If you're like the universe works with me. It's my partner. It's bringing me tools. It's bringing me resources. You're going to attract that because your eyes are open and you're more cognizant of the possibilities and the innovations around you. So you cannot have success with when you haven't done the work. People today, they want instant gratification. They think because they've done, well, I've went to work for 8 hours and I've paid all my bills and I've been a good person, that they're going to somehow be a millionaire and it's just going to happen for them. But they haven't done the work.
Yeah.
Albert Einstein and all of the greats in the world, they had to do things tens of thousands of times before it worked one time. You cannot get success. You cannot be and have the things that you want, your dreams, without a little bit of struggle, because that struggle brings you wisdom. It makes you understand the importance of thinking positive and attracting the things that you want and focusing on that rather than I don't have or the lack, right? So
Yes.
that was a huge thing that I had to like learn when I first got into business. I'm sitting there and I'm working with all these people who own massive networks. Okay. They own big things. And I'm little me and I'm intimidated. And I'm like, oh my God, it's my first year in business. And I don't have $8 million and I don't have a SEO and I don't have this and I don't have that. And then I was like, okay, my coach said to me, yeah, but all you're doing is focusing on what you don't have. He said, you cannot sit at the table with the big guys and feel intimidated by that. You have to focus on your skill, your value, what you're bringing to the table. And he said, and you have to be confident in that. Even if you don't have $5 million, they don't know that and they don't need to know that. He said, your value comes from your own self-worth, what you feel is valuable, and the problems and the things that you're building, right? You can't compare yourself to other people and focus on that lack. Because
It's
when you
like
get in that mindset, it's just not helpful.
it's like the old saying, fake it till you make it, and how the universal law of attraction operates. It's that people will it almost sounds like they're lying to themselves, but affirmations work not in and of themselves, but it programs the mindset to then take the action, which then creates that reality, right? So it seems like it's lying at first, but it's not. And it's interesting because I think I said this in the first time before we got cut off, but the numerology of today is 5, so it's the golden ratio. Gold, the most electrically conductive, silver is the most magnetic, and that
Mm-hmm.
is our mind is also it's an attractor, it's a downloader. Like Tesla figured this out, that his
Mm-hmm.
mind, he hasn't figured out or able to penetrate it, but he knew that there was a central core in the universe somewhere, an all-knowing wisdom, where he was able to then receive downloads from. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where, in sitting in the silence, in the solitude, a lot of entrepreneurs, they need to take that time to sit in solidarity, to
That's right.
receive the clarity that they need for the mission. Because if they don't
Yeah.
have clarity, if they're surrounded by all this busyness and chaos, like even Shaolin monks, they rarely go into the city. It's too busy. It's too deconstructive energy. It's
Mm-hmm.
chaotic.
It can be. And the thing is when you are working in business and you're working with all kinds of people, or you may even be just experiencing life with groups of people, lots of people day to day, you know, you have to be you have to be willing to essentially be willing to connect and align, set boundaries, and be aware of your own energy and your own and how you're conduct. You have to have a level of self-awareness, and that only comes from self-exploration. You only get to self-exploration when your life has basically went sideways enough time where you're fed up and you're like, okay, what I'm doing, this isn't working. It's not working for me, not working for my business, not working for my family. You have to be and be willing to have those honest conversations, because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to change anything. And so then if you know there's a problem and you're not changing it, you've essentially chosen that for yourself. And that
Introspection, yeah. If people aren't honest about what the problem is, how can
right,
they course correct it? It's interesting. We just passed um, Scorpio moon the last
right.
3 days, and that's the perfect time for introspection, taking a look at the internal psyche and figuring out, okay, what's not working, where can we course correct? But like you said
Right.
near the beginning, how many people actually take that time to do that?
Yeah. And it's about balance, right? Like as a human being, you know, we naturally and innately bring um most of us bring a sense of balance wherever we go. When we see a problem, most good human beings, if they see an animal struggling, they're going to go help that animal. They're going to restore that balance. If human beings see like a lake is polluted, innately they're going to want to fix that, right? Of course, there are people out there who don't share those interests, but genuinely a well-rounded and good individual is going to want to see something and want to fix it if they can, right? So, you know, when it comes down to who you are as a person, you have to be willing to look inside yourself, be willing to do the hard work so that you can give that to other people. Because you can't give other people what you don't have yourself.
You can't pour from an empty cup. That's just something I had to learn early on because you were
Yeah.
when people have a lot of ideas and a lot of drive and a lot of abundant Jupiter energy in their natal chart, it can be overstimulating. Like one of the posts that you said. It's so classic. I loved it. Um, Getting burnt out. You got to be careful not to get burnt out, especially when there's so many things. The average millionaire has 7 sources of income, something like that, right? But I just need to plug in my cable. Continue.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Yeah, no, for me, most of the time, when I have been building things, I've had to really force myself to be self-aware. And, I've grown a lot just in a couple of years, right? So you also have to kind of give yourself that time to grow. So, um, yeah, since we've been talking so much about growth, yeah, just saying like basically if you want to grow, you will, and if you don't, then you'll just find excuses.
Yeah, growth versus limited mindset, right? It's so
Exactly.
easy to play the victim or have a growth and expansive mindset and decide that this is not how my story ends. Be a business
Hmm.
owner, right? And those
Yeah.
those programs, especially when it comes to learning about energy, if we are the universe experiencing itself, right? Earth is an anagram for our heart, and our heart is literally it's so powerful that it has the ability to completely restructure the atoms of the electrons of every atom in our entire body. The heart has its own memories, its own brain, its own
Yeah.
emotions, right? And
And so this is so true because I think we've talked about this before. I had a really bad car accident where I suffered. I was in a coma for a long period of time. I had extensive brain trauma, brain damage, and I actually had to relearn a lot of my basic skills, learning walking. I had to rewire all those neurons and neurotransmitters in the brain. And after your body or your brain goes through something traumatic like that, you have to learn how to do things all over again. And part of that is repetition. Part of that is repetition and really hammering down on a skill. You can't be a master at a skill if you're not mastering it, right? Like, so even with the human brain, your brain knows what to do. It will learn with you pushing the force to rewire and relearn things. That's why when people said to me, "Oh, you have a brain injury." Okay, yeah, but that's 10 years ago. I've grown so much since then. My brain has learned to adapt and survive. The human body knows what it needs to do.
yeah, like there's
We as
so
humans are ignorant and think that it doesn't, right?
yeah, there's so many success stories of people who have just activated different energy centers and channels in their body, commanded energy into their crown, completely restructured. Like people who were told by doctors they're never ever going to walk again. They healed their own spine with the power of will alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. No machines, no gimmicks, no medication, just sheer willpower to heal their body. That is how powerful we are. And
Because the power of belief is strong. It's very, very strong. The power of manifestation is strong. If you at this point of life don't understand that you're connected to something greater than beyond you, it's kind of like I would say you probably have to do a little bit more exploration independently because you can't possibly take a look around, look up at the stars and the sun and the moon and the sky, look at the way everything is from the way birds and bees and entire ecosystems thrives and be like, oh yeah, it was just coincidence. And not understand that you're connected to that yourself. It's an acknowledgement that you're created to a greater collective, and you can choose to, be a part of that and improve that collective, or you can choose to go against it. And a lot of people will do that. They will convince themselves that there's something wrong with them and they're sick and all these things. And it's like, well, no, you can change that. You can change that, right? You can, maybe you can't change the fact that you have something going on, you know, but you can make it better by learning to adapt and implementing new skills, tools, and resources to make that better for yourself. That's the beauty of being a human being. We can do that. If we can't figure something out, we can get on the internet and find another solution. A
Yeah.
bear can't do that. He can't just be like, oh, I'm out of honey, I'm going to go create a new type of honey for myself. That's where you have to acknowledge that you as a human being, you're so much bigger than just like that's, I don't even know how to explain it, but we're a lot bigger than we understand. Like our entire existence is a lot bigger than what people understand. They just see with their eyes and think, oh, this is just the material frame, that's all there is. But then if I got you a microscope, you would understand that that's not true. And then on a spiritual level, that's a whole other topic. But you know what I mean? Like we're just a lot bigger than people realize, I think.
So much more is going on than we can even possibly quantify. Like before it even happens, it's already
Well,
been done.
Nikola Tesla knew it, Albert Einstein knew it, all of these people that have contributed massive things to society, they knew that there were universal laws. They knew that we were a part of collective. They understood the power of manifestation, the power of having a relentless drive, being a leader, working with other people, all of those things. They
Seeing
all correlate together
seeing
as one.
how it all connects. Like how is it that there's all these people that were able to figure out when the moon is in Cancer versus Sagittarius or the sun's in Virgo, how the energy shifts. They were in tune, and this is why energy is so important because we can only do what our energy allows us to do. We can't exceed beyond, and the more the mind is open, and that again comes back to energy and how much respect we have for ourselves, which is how much respect we have for others. And this is
Right.
why it's so beautiful what you've done because you saw a need for entrepreneurs because you yourself are one. So you're like,
Yeah, yeah,
what would
exactly.
I need? And then find a need and then fill it, right? But we have to be
Exactly.
honest and have those conversations with ourselves because not
And that's
everyone
why I
is
wanted to
adaptable
build it.
to change. Yeah.
Yeah, is to give people that channel where they could be themselves, be honest, be genuine about their writing. And, every industry is like, well, you need to be this, this, and this. But I feel like you really want to inspire people, empower them, let them be themselves, say what they want. I don't need to take somebody's manuscript and hack it up and then hand it back to them and then their whole story is lost in the whole meaning. That's not what I do. I don't like that. I work side by side with the authors. That's what's kind of different from me. I recognize the hard work that people they've spent the hard work and the time on their manuscripts. And I also understand like it's about connection. You're either going to align with someone or you're not, right? Um, Part of what I do differently is I don't take royalties from people.
I
That's
noticed
major.
that, and a friend of
I
mine
don't.
in South Africa, she wrote her entire story and she hasn't published because she said it can be expensive to publish. So I wanted to get more into the
Mhm.
design and structure of how you yourself operate, right?
So essentially, what all I do is I charge like one-time fee, and that covers their cover design, several rounds of editing, and I charge a fraction of the price than most publishers. And the authors get their royalties. They get their books at cost because I just found out this is crazy. Some publishers are marking up the cost of the book to authors to make money on it. I didn't know that this was a thing, but this is a thing. So I don't do that. They have full control of their rights, their royalties, their ownership, and they're not paying a subscription fee or some fee. It's once the transaction's done, is their book. I give them coaching. I teach them things about the industry, how to improve their writing. I work with them. And I also try to keep it as original as I can to what they've written. I'm not going to go in and start cutting their manuscript up and hacking things out because it's not, you know what I mean? Like, so that these solve a lot of the issues that a lot of authors have, because a lot of authors, they're spending tens of thousands of dollars and they have no control over their book. They have no control over the rights of their book. They're not barely making any money. And, you know, so I was like, I don't want that for people. I want people to be able to have access to publishing. So the other part is I opened a grant program so that even people who couldn't cover, you know, a small publishing cost, they could still publish under my grant program.
Because that's an
So
issue
three
with
years.
a lot of other publishing companies. They have to sell many books just to cover the costs, right?
Mhm.
So it's beautiful that you've incorporated that into your business model as well. I was going to ask you that next.
Yeah. And so then my business, I soak up the costs associated with publishing that book. I pick 3 authors a year, or I may do a collaboration with 12 authors who each get to write a chapter. And then my business will take on that expense, and they still get the experience of being an author, and they get to be published as well. Because I found that in publishing, and I work with a lot of wonderful publishers. Don't get me wrong. There are great ones out there. Maybe their model's a little bit different from mine. They do things differently, and that's okay. Um, every publisher brings different skills. Maybe they specialize in marketing, maybe they specialize in podcasts, who knows so my whole thing is I work with other publishing houses as well, and we do collaborations together, where it used to be publishers would bump heads and kind of fight, you know, and fight over contracts and kind of all these things. I'm trying to kick that off to the curb, and I'm trying to say, hey, we don't need to act like that. We don't need to act like competitors. There is enough people who want to write and write books for everybody. Let's work together and get as many authors as we can publish who have stories, have value to give. Let's keep literature going, because there is not any time to be arguing back and forth about this kind of stuff. Because in a technology world, getting people to open books is a lot harder than you would imagine, right? So people are more going towards digital content now. And so authors are already kind of trying to keep the life of paperbacks going, right?
And it's just
So
not the same having a digital it doesn't take much scrolling to find
mhm.
authors who are giving away free PDFs or digital copies or reducing the cost. It's completely different having a physical copy. Like even just having
Yes,
this,
it
something
is.
I learned in leadership too, having a
Mhm.
digital having a digital schedule is not the same as like when we physically write stuff down, we're actually it's a manifestation ritual. When we're actually writing things, we're creating the first step of
We're
making that a
tying it to a
reality. It's a
physical, we're tying
physical,
it to a
yes,
physical reality. Yeah.
yes.
And that's powerful. I'm going to show you something. And before I show you this, I want anybody to know I don't work for this company. I don't get paid. It's not any of that. This is just something that I incorporate in my life. And this is the 3-6 manifestation journal. Sorry, I'm trying to show it without it. And this is what it is. It's based on Nikola Tesla, 369.
Yeah.
And it's a positive affirmation that you do every day, 3 times, 6 times, 9 times. 1 in the morning, afternoon, night. But what something like this does, okay, and everybody has their own version or tool, They might just have a standard affirmation journal, and that's fine. But that's just the one I use because I like that one. But what it does is it reinforces you to bring it to a physical world, like the physical realm, creates discipline and routine, and forces you to dial in on that intent. So when you're saying, okay, like for instance, one of the manifestations might be like, okay, maybe I want to manifest a better career. So my positive affirmation is going to be, I want to manifest a more powerful career. And your affirmation, you're going to do that 3, 6, 9 times a day. And you're going to keep doing that. But what it's doing is it's rewiring your brain also. It's forcing your brain to change the dialogue that's happening, the internal dialogue that's going on in there. It's forcing you to manifest with intent. That's why it works. And Nikola Tesla knew that. And a lot of people like Albert Einstein, they knew if I keep focusing and dialing in on this, eventually I'm going to figure it out. Eventually it's going to come to reality. But
Persistence pays off.
yeah, and you ask people, you say to them, they'll say, I want to be a millionaire. You ask them, well, how are you going to do it? And they'll make a joke and they'll say, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll start an OnlyFans or something, and they'll make a joke, right? But when you're serious and you say, how are you going to get there? 90% of people don't know.
They don't
They don't,
have an action plan.
right. So they don't know. So how do you get somebody there?
Yeah.
This is why I do coaching. I do transformational coaching as well. I think you do coaching? I think you do coaching too, right?
That's part of my business model. Yes.
Yeah.
Still being
So you
built. So
know
it's
how
all
it works with
slowly coming together.
transformation, right? So
Yeah.
if you force somebody to have the dialogues and the intent, eventually they're going to give up on it because they haven't made it a part of their habitual life practice. You have to incorporate your intent and your actions into your everyday life and routine. That's how you get consistency. You can't just do it one day and then say, oh, it doesn't matter tomorrow because I'm too busy. If you want, you could be busy 7 days a week, right? You could.
Everyone's busy, but it depends on their priorities, which determine how much value they place on the impact of that changing their overall life. If they want to, it's as simple as changing a few habits
Yeah,
every day, compounded consistently over time. It's that
you
simple.
got it. There's the equation. There it is right there in a nutshell, right there. And most people who understand that, they will do very well for themselves in life. It's basically having, the understanding of basic morality, virtues, and good habits and thoughts and discipline. It's not easy. Like, there are people who make it look exceptionally easy, but it's not easy, especially in business, because you're going to get hammered with all kinds of things in business, all kinds of circumstances and problems. But if you have that sense of like consistency and that mindset where you're problem focused, you'll do just fine. It's when people get caught up in negative stuff where they get stuck in flight or flight, and then they can't make a decision, they can't make a move, and they're like this, a deer in the headlights, and they're frozen, right? So that's why it's important that you have life coaches, you have support. You cannot do success on your own. You really can't.
And this is why the hierarchy of success matters very much in business and everything, right?
Yes.
One of the biggest things that people say about network marketing is the pyramid scheme. Everything is a pyramid. It just depends how the money changes hands, whether it's legal or whether it's not. But the
Right.
biggest thing is the people at the top, especially in military, the general, they make the most amount of money. Why? Because they understand power structures, how things
Mhm.
operate, why things do what they do. They understand, and this is why it's so important to study multifaceted forms of the interconnected nature of what makes
Mhm.
things tick.
That's
right? Like
right.
to be a business owner, you have to know which individual is suited for which task, how to negotiate, how to create harmony within the environment. All these tools and skill sets, adaptability, it's all part of the overall package. Can never, and
Right.
this is why no matter how high people rise in their industry,
Mhm.
they always need a mentor who's further along in the path. Like, and this is where humility comes too.
Mhm.
This is why my company is started from humble beginnings, because it's balance is key.
Mhm.
Power can corrupt,
Oh yeah.
especially in knowledge too. It can be
Hmm.
all consuming. And so there's a
Yes,
lot
it
of
can.
lessons on the way to the top. And one of the biggest things is humility and adaptability.
That's correct. Yeah. And you can't, like, people think that you can kind of skip those lessons. You can't. Because if you miss those lessons, you could really cause damage to yourself and the things around you, you know. So you have to be willing to be learning all the time. You have to understand that sometimes you're going to be the student and sometimes you're going to be the teacher. It doesn't matter if you're the owner, the business owner, the CEO. That's just a technical title. You are always a student, always a
Lifelong
student.
learning.
And if you
Yes.
don't want to be a student, then you're going to have to pay somebody else, and that's going to be real expensive because you're going to have to pay somebody else to care and to learn for you and deal with that side of your business. So you're either paying or you're learning, basically.
What's billionaires' biggest investment? Number one, themselves and their library. Like when I cleared out my storage unit, that was the most important priority to me that I had because I spent well over 10,000, at least 10 grand
Yeah.
in leadership tools, events, gas, flights, hotels, all that stuff. The biggest thing, the biggest impact, the books.
Mm-hmm.
Because that wisdom in there, that is invaluable. You can't put a
It
price
is.
on it. They do put a price on it. Humans love
Yeah.
to quantify things, but you
Yes, they
can't
do.
really put a value on the amount of wisdom that people have put into a book that is like this thick.
No. And this is what, so I'll show you. This was my first book, Exceptional Minds. And in a nutshell, in my earlier days of self-development and leadership, is I wrote Exceptional Minds. And then I did a course with it. But then I go back and I read it and I'm like, oh my God, I could have expanded on this so much more. So it was a learning experience from an author. I wanted to get the book out and get it done. And I knew I was going to do a course. So I kept it a shorter book. But then I thought, no, I need to make like the mother of all mother self development books. And I'm still working on that. That's a work in progress.
Yeah.
But I did do Luminous Leaders, which was a book collab. And we talk about all of these things in there. And it's interesting because even when I go back and I'm working with clients and I'm publishing their stuff, you wouldn't believe how much I actually learned just from other people's work and knowledge and books because it's like they've put it in a different language, a different verbiage or perspective, and it resonates. And that's what it's about. That's why I call magnetic publishing, right? Because it's about resonating with people who align to that, right? I don't spend a lot of time seeking leads, or most of my clients are all organic. They come to me because they've noticed something or they're attracted to what I'm doing or they've been referred to me. And I like that better because it's like then I know that we align and we're similar, and that, you know, I don't have to really work too hard to try to make business relationships work when they're not working for either of us and it's a negative experience. So that's the beauty about having your own business. And that's one thing that I've really enjoyed is because I've met some really amazing people who have like naturally just gravitated towards me, and we've become like super close. So I love what I do, and I really love a lot of the people that I work with. But one of the main things I learned is, yeah, like you have to be willing to like be very adaptable. So that was, you said that, and like I'm like, yeah, that is one of the main things is
Being
adapt.
adaptability is huge. When I was the last year and a bit landing back on my feet, a friend said to me when we reconnected that my comeback is going to be even greater because the first time when I was new, I had to learn it all from scratch, and then you hit peaks and energy, learning different things about health. Because when people awaken to the sleep that they're in, they have to start changing habits, right? And everything. And it's been a huge transformative journey. And
Mhm.
so people can only put in the effort to the energy that they're currently carrying. They can't go beyond that, right? Because then issues happen. So the book, we have like a little library here
Yeah,
where you take a book, leave a book kind of thing. And this one
that's
stood
so
out.
cool.
This one stood out to me. Keep going.
Oh, I
And
like that.
it's about a grandfather who sits on the porch, uh, who is smoking his pipe or his a cigarette, and he's passing down like his wisdom to his
Mhm.
grandchild about the art of perseverance and long-term vision. And I remember my energy, it was just so lethargic at that
Mhm.
time. But that was the book that stood out, and I picked that one. And now this is how huge mindset is in how energy affects everything. Now reading a book called Skilled Success: How to Train Like the Best and Become Exceptional at Anything. And I got it for free online. I just paid shipping for it. The stuff in there, and this it's amazing because you could tell there's spelling and grammatical errors in there. He doesn't care.
Yeah,
It's not about that. It's about the
the
knowledge that
message.
is in there. And when people stop focusing on the little tiny details or being a grammar Nazi or this or that, those things matter for professionalism for sure, but they're not the most important. The most
No, they're
important
not.
is the energy because just like language, words can lie,
A book can be
but energy
revised,
doesn't. Exactly.
right? A book can be revised, and most books are revised. As a publisher, I'm going to tell you shit happens. Grammar mistakes happen.
Yeah.
Even to J.K. Rowling, it happened to her. Okay, so shit happens. Nobody's gonna. It's about the message. It's about the value that that book offers somebody else. It's a level of impact. It's level of influence. That message, is it going to resonate with everybody? Probably not. Somebody will always say that was, I didn't like that book. I didn't like it. You could be the top author in the world, and somebody will still have something to say about it. But what it is it's for the people where it resonates, they're bringing the value, they're understanding it, they're learning, and it's causing them to grow and
Right.
influencing lives. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, it's like
For me,
if you're
for
not
real.
triggering people, if you're not um getting people offensive or offended or creating critics, yeah, you're not really growing or making
Influencing.
moves then, right? Because no
You're
matter
not
what,
influencing.
well, exactly, right? You get to a certain level, you're going to affect change. Some people are going to like that. Some people are not
Mhm.
going to like that. Chris
Right.
Brady, um, he's on the top. He's on the top 50 of leadership experts in the world and the top people to follow on Twitter as
Yeah.
well. One of the, I think he's the CEO or something like that of Life Leadership Network Marketing. But he posted on X, I don't perform for my critics. I perform for my fans. Because you're gonna have trolls. It's about learning
Yeah,
not
exactly.
to always
Oh yeah.
engage with people that are trying to bring you down to their level.
Yeah.
It's like someone
And
trying to
that's
drown
what it
you.
is. I get it all the time. I get people that are like, like I've never even met them in my life, and they'll comment something, and I've had to learn. See, when I was younger, I was more reactive, right? See, because when you're going through struggle, you're going through things, you can become very reactive and you're very hyper vigilant of what other people are saying and doing to you because you have your own issues that are going on that are unresolved. So you become reactive. Your power comes from the way that you respond and the way you react. If you give negative people a platform, they'll never shut up. Like they will never shut up.
They'll
They will
find
always find something.
It's like you
They you
said,
yeah,
some people will have a problem for every solution. Why
yeah.
is the lion
Yeah.
the king of the jungle? They were born with those instincts, but they still had to earn
Because he's okay
that
to
title.
stand alone.
They're
He's
okay
okay to stand
to
alone.
just sit back and watch people, the hyenas coming into their territory, laughing, stealing. But when the time comes to it, they're fierce, they're loyal, they know how to run things, they know how to lead, they know how to command respect. They're not the biggest, they're not the fastest, they're the smartest.
Right. They are. And you'll notice that with apex creatures, they could care less what's going on in the ocean. They are focused on their goal. The lion is focused on his hunt, he's focused on his pride, and he's focused on defending his territory. But the lion only does that when he sees it as a threat. If you see everybody as a threat, you're always going to be fighting. You're always going to be at war and
Because you're
battle.
attracting that because that's the frequency that you're emitting into the universe. So
That's correct.
the universe doesn't care about what you say, it cares
But
about
the
the energy.
lion will stand over his pride and he'll look and he'll say, that's just the cycle of life. Those hyenas are going to eat that giraffe regardless of where I stand. He acknowledges his purpose and he acknowledges that regardless of where he is, life is going to continue around him. But he understands the difference between an actual threat and a perceived threat, right?
Yeah, we were just talking
So
about that
that's,
before we jumped on the call. The hero, the victim, and the villain mentality and not attaching
yes,
to those labels. That's something I had to learn early on is not to interrupt people's karma. You can't help everybody, and we shouldn't
no,
help everybody either because it's the struggle and then emerging from that, realizing why there is a lesson in suffering is part of the journey to
it's for wisdom.
enlightenment.
That's correct.
The people,
You don't get it for nothing.
it comes at a cost. Like knowledge comes at a cost, wisdom
Yes,
comes
it
at a
does.
cost. If it's free, how many people actually appreciate free? It sure is great, but
Nobody. They don't. They
there's you're not
don't.
going to get the full value out of it unless you had to earn it.
I ran free coaching programs, and what I noticed was if you give that for free, people will take advantage of it. They'll be like, "Oh, it doesn't matter if I don't show up. It doesn't matter if I don't do, what we agreed and committed on getting done. It doesn't matter if I follow through because they're not paying for it. There's no consequence or loss for them, right? So when there's no consequence and they're just getting it for free, they don't they start expecting it or they don't really value it as much. People value what they put money into, right?
Yeah.
So if you that's the reality is we can say money doesn't matter, but you and I both know there are many people in society who will put monetary value above anything and everything in life. There are people that exist like that. And I always say just because you wouldn't do something or you wouldn't act a certain way doesn't mean other people won't. And that's why you have to have boundaries and you have to be very firm in who you are, what you are, and the things that you want in life. Because, you know, some people don't have the same heart as you, right? So that's the other part of that you have to learn when it comes to self-development.
Self-sacrifice it's about especially people with altruistic needs. I am very altruistic. I try to see the positive in everything, but having big hearts can come at a cost because this was
Yeah.
part of my journey too. I, someone said to me once when I was staying at a homeless shelter, "You're
Yeah.
spoiling them, man," because it's like so they had businesses going on where they're selling certain products and services, right? But the vultures will swoop in if they see that you're an easy target, you're going to give stuff away for free, you have a kind, compassionate heart, they're going to start taking advantage of that and suck the energy out of you, which is why
Mhm.
energy is so important, especially with currency, having a healthy respect for it, not seeing it as evil. It's
Mhm.
about the value we put on it, having
Right.
a healthy viewpoint on it, because
Right.
like I grew up where money was just, we didn't always have an abundance of it, but then learning how the chakras align to, and the root is the
Right.
Muladhara, Mula, money, 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 right? So the support system and our connection with our parents, right? So
Right.
relations matter very much. People who are the most successful, they're the most
They look at
enriching
money as
and
a tool.
nourishing to people in their lives. People who do well, it's because they're loved by many people. Why? Because
Well,
they're serving, they're providing,
right.
they're
That's
creating
right.
value. This is why they
It's
attract so
exactly
much.
it. People, money's a tool. And people
Yes.
who it's either going to be a tool or a ruler. If you pick money as a ruler, you will never experience loyalty. You will never experience any positive relationships because you can only get that from human beings. Money can't give you that, right? You have to have a greater purpose. You have to work for more than just money.
Yeah.
If your purpose is to work for just money, go work a 9 to 5. If you want to serve, you want to help people, you want to inspire people, and you want to influence people, then you know you're doing the right things. But if you're doing something just for money, go work a 9 to 5.
That's something that
That's it.
I learned about myself recently, is that deep down I had this innate knowing, but it's money was never my driving force, and especially in
No,
network
it can't
marketing
be.
too. Seeing dollar signs above people's heads is it's not the best approach.
Yeah.
It could be part of the learning journey for sure, right? But the best way is the money will come when the intention and the actions are aligned.
That's
The
right.
money will come, but the purpose has to be first. It's like
Yes.
Adele said to
Yes.
me about my book, because I have all these different income sources that I have listed. I
Right.
can't write the book just as an income source. It has to be for inspirational purposes, something that other people can get out of it.
Right.
Because
It has
the
to
ripple
offer
effect,
value.
it has to offer value. Otherwise, why do I deserve to make any money from it? That would be selfish, right? If I'm only doing it
Well,
for money, there's no inspiration there.
that's the one of the things I tell my authors. If you want me to tell you that you're going to make $1 million after your first book, I'm not going to tell you that, and you should go find another publisher. I said because that's not what my brand's about. It's not what I will ever tell somebody because it's not about that. That's not why you become an author. People don't Stephen King and even the most prominent authors, like they've spent decades writing books, giving good stories and adding value to the industry. You're not going to get that from any industry, really. So you're right. You're right on that. If you want to give people, you want to serve people, you want to give them value and you want to give them things, then that's why you do something. You do not do it because you think that you're going to be rich overnight. You have to learn the skills, right? And the other thing about a book is a lifetime product. You don't build a lifetime product overnight. You don't do that.
It's
You
like
you can
coming in, into Earth as a
yeah.
child and thinking, "Oh, I'm already a trillionaire." No.
It's wild,
No,
eh?
it's a
It's wild.
process.
It
Imagine
is
being
a
that
process.
baby though, thinking that. It's just like, talk about psychosis. I've experienced psychosis. And so this is why it's a journey, and you can't, like you said, we agree on that. You cannot skip the steps. The difference between being a psychic and having psychosis is in being grounded, right? brainwave
Yeah.
states definitely matter because I've had the vision for a while, but
Right.
I wasn't doing the work because I was unbalanced. I had to learn about my own energy. So an authentic path, Sarah the Alchemist
Yeah.
posted this is it's amazing and it's so true. The longer the journey, if it takes longer to accomplish your dreams,
Hmm.
you're going to have more impact, but the effects are going to be forever legendary. If it takes longer, it's because there's a refinement process that needs to happen. So there's going to be more quality added to the final package.
Yeah, yeah. And that's so true. You know, anything that's rushed, when you rush something, you know, you're not really thinking it through. You're kind of like it's not as satisfying when it's rushed, and the quality often takes a hit. And that's usually what ends up happening. So if you plan, you're organized, and um, you execute things with patience and organization, accuracy, you're going to do better. And that's the reality of it. If you are rushing through everything in life, you're more apt to make mistakes. You're more apt not to see potential risks, see different things. So there's a reason why, you know, you have to focus on self-development. You have to understand your connection to the universe around you, the people around you, and sort of how you connect to everything around you. Manifestation, it's huge. Self exploration, all of these things that we've talked about today, like people pay tens of thousands of dollars to go to school and learn. Like they do. They really do.
Yes.
Like I didn't learn about any of this stuff in my early 20s or in my teens or anything like that. Like your parents basically say, save your money and get a job and work really hard. And then, you know, you get out in the world and you start working and you're like, well, I can't afford a Lamborghini working here. I'm not going to be able to doing this because it's not realistic, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of what we learn when we're younger, it sounds good, but it's not really realistic because there's so many different things missing from the equation because we haven't had the life experience to actually learn the whole lesson through. We hear people say to us, don't do this because of this. And most parents will say, because I said so.
But how do you get the experience without having, how do you get the wisdom without having the experience? And this goes back
Right.
to discipline too, and knowing when to listen and
And when
when
to,
to act and follow intuition, because one of the most famous samurai warriors, Miyamoto Musashi, he taught about discipline. How he became so great is because discipline shields the effects of suffering, right?
mm-hmm.
When people are disciplined, they don't, there's a point and purpose to suffering, but we don't need to stay in suffering and in lack.
No,
And
you
there's
don't.
so
You need
much
to take the lesson from it.
abundance.
You got to
Yes,
take the lesson
learn.
of it because people can guide you and they can give you little pointers in life, but they can't give you the experience. They can't give you all of the wisdom. They cannot give you all of the insight, perspective, and knowledge. It's impossible. The only way you actually learn and learn impactful lessons that have profound changes on you as a person or your world around you is by having that experience yourself. And you trade those experiences, all that suffering, all that pain for that knowledge, right?
Yeah,
And if you're really, really talented, you might be able to wrap that up in a book. You might be able to share that with the rest of the world in some form. But most of the time in life, people can't spoon feed you the answers to life or the formulas. It comes down to you, your interpretation of what you do with it, right?
yes,
So that's kind of where I was going with that kind
and
of
it
thing.
comes
A point.
down to how open-minded someone is and their willingness to learn. Like there's leadership authors that charge a lot of money for talks. And then like there's a time where they need to offer that for free as well because balance, right? You do some things for free and
Hmm.
then and then especially having a lot of experience allows you to expand your income can never exceed
Right.
your experience and talents, with some exceptions like lottery, inheritance, and so on and so forth,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But that's the great thing about offering stuff for people that cannot afford it, because you're filling a need, and then you're also putting out into the universe that you're helping, and then that creates a ripple effect and
Well, it's give and take,
karma,
right? Like it's
yeah,
give and take. You can't take and never give.
yeah,
Because as we
unbalanced.
know, if we said to everybody, yeah, go fish as much as you want, we'd fish everything out. And then if we never put anything back in, it would cease to exist. You can't just take and never give. Because if you do that, that's not an attitude of servitude, right? And there's universal consequences to that. So
Universal con.
that's you
Oh,
have to have an even balance of things, right? And it takes a while to kind of understand the universal laws, understand all of those things, right? But like we said earlier, you can't skip steps because one lesson will lead to you learning 15 other lessons if you're not careful. Do you know what I mean? So it's the way things go in life, like so I've learned anyways, like I found, okay, if I didn't want to learn this lesson and I avoided it and everyone tried to tell me not to do that and then I went ahead and did it anyways, and because of that I had to learn 5 other lessons because I didn't learn the first lesson. So now there was a consequence that forced me to learn more than one lesson. You see what I mean? So you can almost like create a cycle if you don't learn what the universe wants you to learn, right?
it's the old saying, people can't be told, they need to be shown, because they can only understand something at the level of information that they're currently operating off, their beliefs, and how much consciousness that they're tapped into. They're not able to receive the message, like you were saying earlier about the deer in headlights. So it's so important to speak with people in a language that they can comprehend. The best
Right.
leaders, the best authors, the best publishers, they know how to communicate in a way that can allow for flow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, instead of control. Most people, and I've seen this before. I also have a background in behavioral sciences, and sometimes certain people who have been through trauma, they have this need to control, right? And it might be because of trauma, it might be because they don't trust the universe, it might be because they don't trust anybody. There could be a million different variables, right? But that need to control everything, sometimes it makes it even worse, right?
Does
It
make it
makes it
worse.
even
They're
worse.
doing it
Sometimes you
because
just have to let it be.
it's out of fear. They because they don't want to repeat the same patterns, but they're not at their mind isn't operating from the higher portion to
Mhm.
realize that when they detach, when they just relinquish all control. This is why all the spiritual masters, they knew that surrender was empowering. When they stop trying to control
Mhm.
everything, that is when things happen, when they don't
Control
attach
is
to outcome.
you being in control. That is the ultimate form of control. You will never control anything else around you because it's bigger than you. It's unpredictable. It's bigger than you. Control is controlling you. When you control this, that is when everything else around you will feel controlled. If you are not aligned and you feel out of control, how everything else around you is going to seem out of control too, right?
Yeah.
And that was something that I had to learn. Everything feels out of control because I'm not in control, right? Because I'm too busy trying to control everything else. And then it becomes this like battle of control, right? But that's it. What we said, you only control this. And when you have a good control of this, everything else comes.
Yeah.
You have to be able to trust the universe, right? you can't control the universe. So the only thing you control is yourself. So once you're in control of this, then the universe around you will handle it better.
The
You know what I mean?
universe will restructure itself for each individual's reality based on
Right.
the needs that person needs to learn for their independent journey. This is why it, it's so important not to compare ourselves to other people's journeys. Like
Yes.
everyone
Yeah.
has their own mission, and we all work
Yeah.
in unity for the whole collective. Every single
Right.
person has their role to play in fulfilling
That's right.
prophecy, which is it's
That's
so
right.
amazing. Like to sit back and realize that everything it's unfolding how it is meant to. There's so much
Yeah.
power in that.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of people like they want to control everything around them instead of themselves, but they don't understand that that's where the control comes from is being able to control yourself and how you respond around you. But once you let go of that ideology and let the universe just do, you're more receptive to growth and learning, and you're more receptive to aligning and attracting the things that are for you. If you don't let things just be and you're always trying to force things and of course the world's going to feel like it's going against you, you know, and then, just that recognizing that you can't always seem to predict everything that's going to happen either. You can plan and you can plan and you can do all the right things, but sometimes things are going to happen. That's why that goes back to that point. You can't be reactive. You have to be solutions focused.
Yeah.
As you know, your whole model is built off of that very slogan,
Yeah.
you know, so that's what it's all about, right? Is learning to just go with the punchlines and being able to only control your being, right? Because you can't predict, you can't plan your way out of anything. And the other thing I learned is too, like a lot of people think just because you throw money at something, it's going to make it better, right?
Not
But
always.
that's not always the case either. Because again, money's a tool, right? So, like, all of these kind of lessons I find tend to tie into one another. Like you've spent a lot of money, and I spent a lot of money probably on leadership development and all of these things, right? But I think, too, the most important thing is people have to be ready for that. They
They
have to
have
be
to be
ready.
receptive and ready to hear it because otherwise they're gonna miss the whole, and then the universe is just gonna keep sending them signs and synchronicities, and if they're not aware of it,
Mhm.
right? This seeing is so important when people can truly see and their eyes are open. There's so many hidden cryptic clues written in the Bible for like the Bible is essentially a book about consciousness at its core root when looked at through the proper eyes and not the way that it was meant to be uh,
Mhm.
deceptive, right? They were
Right.
talking about having the eye being full of light when you can just see how it all interconnects, how energy flows and how it syncs up. Like I went for a walk the other day and my intuition was calling me to take a different path. And then I go and see like 5 rabbits within the course of like 5 minutes. I saw seven
Right.
rabbits in one day. So naturally, I'm always in tune to finding the hidden meaning, like the spiritual
Life,
meaning
yeah, life
behind
is
everything.
always showing us things.
Yes, if we're open and ready, it's just like, what's the universe trying to, because there's always these guides
Mhm.
that are popping up, and people
Yeah,
don't
it's
always see
true.
them until they're ready, right?
It's true. It's true. And I think if you try to rush the process, that's when you're going to be more apt to like kind of make mistakes and things like that. I think people, they're often very distracted and they don't do a lot of self-reflection. Um, you know, our ancestors, they didn't worry about working 2 and 3 jobs and paying taxes and doing all these crazy things that like we as a society have taken on. They were like family, income, resources, hunting, gathering, providing, very basic. So of course they were more cultured spiritually because there weren't as many distractions. So it comes down to that self-care piece. You have to you know, be willing to do the hard work, put the hours in, and take care of yourself, no matter what's going on around you. Our ancestors knew that. They've known that for thousands of years, how important it is to be connected to yourself, be connected to the world around you, and to the point where even in ancient civilizations and cultures, they would send out, you know, the young before they would reach adulthood. They would send the young teenagers out on their own soul quests. And they would say, okay, you go out on your own, you're going to go for 2 weeks and you're going to tell me what that soul searching meant for you. So they would go out in the wilderness on their own for weeks at a time with no distractions, nothing. And they would say, what did you learn? What did the universe teach you? And we don't do that anymore, obviously. But it's interesting because even our ancestors knew that we have to connect with our higher self and our world around us. So I think it's super important, even at this day.
Ancient wisdom is ancient. Like we're bringing back old. The old is the new. That's what
It
we're
is.
bringing into
It's
this,
just been
this
like
reality.
spiced up a little bit, like revamped, like the verbiage is a little bit more like, you know, it's a little more spicier, a little bit more modern day, but essentially like you've read old books, I've read old books, so we both know like, hey, this is like new stuff. Like it's not new stuff, but like the way it's presented is new because we don't communicate that way anymore. So
Yeah.
like I think all of those books, like the Bible, all of those things, they all offer generally a good sense of morality, moral compass, lessons. And I think that it just depends on you as an individual and what that means for you. You may not change your whole life and go out on a mission to be a disciple of Christ or whatever, but you're going to still take something from that, right? Like there are lessons and things that you can take from everything around you. So that was one thing I also have to learn too. Like difference doesn't mean danger. Difference means opportunity to learn. And you'd be surprised how many people are scared of difference. Like they're terrified of it. And I never noticed it. And then one day I was like, yeah, this person's just scared because it's different from what they believe, right?
It's stepping outside of their comfort zone. So it's discomfort that is different. People are so used to their habits and habitual ways of doing things. So it's a little terrifying for people to
Yeah,
step outside of their comfort zone. But that is where growth exists the
that's
most.
it.
That's one of the things that I said
Yes,
when I first
yes.
came to Guelph, before I landed back on my feet, is that I think more people should become homeless because it teaches so much growth, problem solving skills. When, when you just completely drop and it seems like there's no hope and you lost, and then coming back, that's an insane amount of perspective that can be gained in a very short amount of time. The most amount of pain in the least amount of time, I feel like teaches the most amount of growth.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like, and you may not even have to even have that specific experience, but when you have experienced any type of experience where there's a level of scarcity for resources, for safety, you know, we can refer back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Yeah.
that hierarchy of needs. When those needs are not met, and there is a scarcity within that pyramid of your basic needs being met, you don't, nothing else matters but meeting that need, right? Like if you're hungry, that's all you're going to be thinking about, right? But you often are forced to have to deal with other things and other problems because you know that solution The sandwich isn't just in the fridge for you. You're forced to have to go and deal with life regardless of those that hierarchy of needs being met. So it teaches the ultimate level of perseverance and problem solving because it's not just a snap of a finger and Uber's at your door to bring your dinner for you, or you can't just go turn on a light and there's light, right? Like,
Yeah.
so when you've experienced loss and scarcity and like all of these different things, all you can do is learn, right? That's all there is to learn. There is no more distractions. There is no more, comfort or security. It's what you build, right? And how you learn to build it with very little or limited things,
Yes.
right? So it is actually it is a complete alchemy of skill set because you can't it's taking nothing and making something. Like you literally starting from literally nothing. So
That's the great metaphysics illusion of magic that creates this entire
yeah,
realm, is that everything comes from nothing. It's just
yeah,
stuff that beyond what we can see with our main senses is where the magic is happening. It's in the stillness and the gaps between what is occurring and and what we think isn't. But that's
yeah,
where it's just like, and that's why the mysteriousness of the universe is
right.
so magical.
I think it's really cool as well. I think you and I could probably talk about this for like days if
We
we could,
could. We should
but
definitely do another one. But I
we
know you've
should
got some
definitely.
stuff to give care and attendance to. I appreciate your time as always. I always ask guests to kind of do just a wrap up and any wisdom that they can share, as well as where people can find you. I will be posting this, and the thumbnail is just I felt the purple and just the feng shui when I was making it, and I've been excited for this for a while. So thank you again
Yay!
for your
Thank you for
time.
having me.
Look forward to working together and seeing the
Yeah, me too. I can't
creative.
wait to see and hear more about your book because
Yeah,
that's really exciting. I'm so happy for you.
yeah. I
And I'm
already
glad
have.
like we got to reconnect again. So that was kind of cool too.
It was good. Already got a few people lined up that says, let me know when it's out and I'll buy it. So any words of wisdom
Sweet.
and the best places that people can reach you and ways to connect with you.
Yeah, so you can find me at Amanda M. Renaud on Facebook, or you can get a hold of me on my website at www.magnetic/publishing.ca. And you can also find me on Substack and under Magnetic Publishing. And yeah, you can also message Steve. He'll get you in touch with me if you're curious. And just remember, the one most important thing is to stay true to yourself and always know that the universe is working with you, not against you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful way to end it. Until next time, Amanda, bye for now.
you betcha. Thank you.